Assignment 24 is parabola intuition, and we're just about done. So we've just got this one and two more, so it goes up to 26, and that'll be it for the final. Parameters of a quadratic equation. Well, first of all, a quadratic has an x squared in it, so this thing is going to have an x squared in it. And then a parameter, remember mx plus b being the equation of a line? Well, the two parameters there were m and b. Parameters are spots in an equation or form that mean particular things. So m is a parameter, and I could replace it with the number 3, x plus 2, and b was a parameter. So quadratic equations have parameters too, and here they are. A is the number in front of the x plus b, b is the number in front of the x, plus c is the one that's all by itself. So for example, in 3x squared plus 2x minus 1, the parameters a, b, and c are 3 for a, 2 for b, and negative 1 for c. All right, so the parameters of a quadratic equation are a, b, and c. And now let's define some examples of wide and narrow parabolas. So I'm going to draw a coordinate plane for these two. Here is an example of a wide parabola. So when I say, please draw a wide parabola, or is this parabola wide, it looks like that. And then here's an example of what I mean by a narrow parabola. All right, so here's wide and here is narrow. And then here are a couple of parabolas. I want one that opens upwards. So that's a parabola that looks like this. It's a smiley face type of parabola. And then opens downwards. When I say opens downwards, I mean a parabola that's opening down this way. So that's a frowny face parabola. Okay, so upwards is a smiling face and downwards is a frowny face. And let's move on and see what this is good for. I'm about to use this, what's called a quadratic transformer, and it's going to take my original equation 1x squared plus 0x plus 0. In other words, I start here with a is 1, b is 0, and c is 0. And I'm going to be changing this quantity here, the a. And I want you to look at what changing the a does to the equation. In particular, does it make it wider or narrower? All right, so here's what it looks like. So I'm starting here with a is 1, and let's change a, the blue thing, the term in front of the x, squared. So let's increase a. So now it's 2, and then now it's 3. Is this getting narrower or is it getting wider? 4, 5, 6. This parabola is getting narrower. And now let's decrease a. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so decreasing a makes the parabola wider. And then let's keep decreasing a all the way to 0, so that's a straight line. And then decrease a again, and now my a is negative now. And you can see it's a frowny face parabola. So this is a parabola that's going downwards, a frowny face parabola, and here's a parabola that's upwards. And the parameter that I changed to make it up or down is this parameter here, a. Okay, so let's look. When a is negative, like for example, when it is negative 2, then I get a frowny face parabola, and when a is positive, like for example, positive 3.1, now I have a happy face, an opening upward parabola. So let's summarize that. So let's draw some equations here. So I'm going to start by drawing the equation for x squared, because that's the equation that I'm comparing everything to. And now let's have a bigger positive a, like for example, why don't we draw 3x squared? So that means a is 3, and then here a is 1, so the number in front was 1. And both of these are happy increasing parabolas, so a is 1. And now let's draw a negative a. So what if I were to draw minus x squared, which means that a is negative 1. Or I could draw another negative here because it's going downwards. It's opening downwards, negative 4x squared. So that means a is -4. All right, so when a is positive, like this one and this one, I have an opening upward, opens upward parabola. So when a is positive, I have a smiley face parabola. So if I want to get a smiley face parabola, that means a has to be positive. And then when a is negative, it opens downward. Opens downward. So that's these two parabolas are frowning parabolas, and the reason they're frowning is that the first parameter a, the thing in the front, is negative. So here are some positive parabolas, and here are some negative parabolas. All right, pause here. Okay, so now I'm being asked if a is more than 1 or if it's a fraction or a decimal. Okay, so let's start with the normal parabola, which is 1x squared. Okay, now if I start with 1 and I multiply it, it's still positive, so I'm multiplying it by bigger and bigger numbers, and you can see it's getting narrower and narrower. So here's 8, and if this was 10, it would be even narrower than this parabola. So when I multiply, when the parameter is more than 1, the parabola gets narrower and narrower. Okay, so let's draw the two equations that I've had so far. So I started with a regular parabola, which was x squared again. So a was 1 to start with, and then it got steeper and steeper. So this is 6x squared. 6x squared means a was 6. And that meant that when a was more than 1, like this one, the parabola got narrower. Okay, so when a was more than 1, the parabola gets narrower. Narrow. All right, so what if a was a fraction or a decimal? Okay, so let's go back and make a, this term here, a fraction or a decimal. So I'm going to go down, and let's turn this into 1/2 or 0.5. So I'm back here at 1, and now let's take it to 1/2. So there I've gone from 1 to 1/2, and look at what happened to the parabola. So look here at the parabola. It gets wider. It gets wider. All right, so what if it was 0.1, like a decimal? That's even, nope, that's 0. That's even wider than it was before. All right, so making a parabola, when a is a fraction or a decimal, my answer is, when a is a fraction or a decimal, the two that I showed you were this one here. Oh, sorry. This one here. And that was 1/2 x squared. In other words, a was a fraction, 1/2. Or I also showed you 1/10, which is all the way out here. That's really super wide. 0.1 x squared, and that's a decimal. 0.1 x squared. A is a decimal. Okay, so I'm saying that this thing here was 0.1. When that's a decimal, I have a wide parabola. So if I want a wide parabola, that means that a, the number in front, has to be a decimal. Okay, so here were two narrow parabolas because a was more than 1, and here are two wide parabolas because a is a fraction or a decimal. All right, and then there's one more possibility. Let's start off again with my regular thing. All right, so I'm going to start with a parabola. I'm going to make A1. That's my normal parabola. And you can see here that C is 0. If I make C, this number here, I'm going to change this parameter here now, C, the last one. If I increase C, my whole parabola shifts upwards. Now, I understand that it looks like it's getting smaller, but that's just because you can't see the whole rest of the parabola that's up there. Okay, in fact, I take the whole parabola and I'm moving it down. Okay, so here is C. So now C is -6, and you can see that I've moved it down 6 so that the y-intercept is -6, and now I'm going to move it back up again. So I take the whole parabola and I can move it up to 2. Okay, so here are some of the equations that I just showed you. I did not change the x squared term in any case, so these were all x squares. Okay, so I didn't change the width of the parabola. All I did was change the y-intercept of the parabola. So this was x squared plus 3 because it moved up 3. And then here's my regular parabola, x squared. So this was x squared. And then what if I wanted to move it down 4? Down 4 to here. Well, that would be x squared minus 4. X squared minus 4. Oh, sorry, I made the parabola negative. It never did. That would have been negative x squared to make it make a frowny face like that. I had a happy face parabola, so this is still a happy face parabola because this term I didn't change, minus 4. Okay, and then this one here, to go up the 3, I had to add 3, and then to move it down 4, I had to subtract 4. All right, so when c is positive, you move the whole parabola up. And then when c was negative, you move the whole parabola down. All right, so here are the total number of possibilities. Pause here because I'm about to show you all the different possibilities. All right, so let me move back so that c was 0. If I want to make the parabola wide, I change this so that it's a fraction or decimal, so like that, maybe 0.3. If I want to make the parabola negative, then I make this negative, and now it's trending downward. If I want to make it narrow, I can times it, so times it by, say, negative 3. So this was negative 3, and then I can move that parabola up. I have to change to this parameter, and I can move that parabola up vertically by changing c, or down vertically by changing c.